Hello to the class for the U.S. and Arizona Constitutions for teacher candidates. Today I'll be going over the initiatives and the referendums in Arizona. So first I'll be explaining the definitions of what incentive is, and it is a noun. So what an incentive is the right to initiate legislation action. And also another definition for it is a procedure enabling a specific number of voters by petition to propose a law and secure its submission to the legislative or to the legislative for approval. So the other definition of referendum, it is the principle or practice of submitting to proper vote a measure passed on a proposed by a legislator body or by popular incentive. And then another definition that you can go based off of for this is a vote on a measure so submitted. And then the next thing I'll be explaining today is explain how initiatives and referendums are created. So in the late 17th century, referendums were created by Thomas Jefferson in 1775 for the Virginia state constitution. Furthermore, it has not added to the Virginia Constitution, but Massachusetts was the first state to hold the statewide legislation for the referendum in 1778. Then after that, the New Hampshire followed them in 1792 Constitution and established it as a mandatory for all states to have a legislative referendum in 1857. And then moving forward to the initiative. So in the 19th century, the initiative process came about and was a major part of the reform package. This concept was to establish that an individual could enhance the representative government. And the first representative government state that came about was Nebraska was the first state to permit cities to place incentives and the referendum in their charters. So moving forward to the compare and contrast of an incentive and a reformative. So initiative is a process where citizens propose statutes or in certain states constitutional amendments and submit to them to the legislator or send them to the legislator. So there are two types of an incentive, which are indirect or direct. Which direct process those proposals that pass the primary requirements go straight to the ballot. If it wins, then the favorable vote, then the proposal becomes law. And that means indirect. But that was the direct. But with indirect incentives, the proposal is directly addressed to legislative directly, and then additionally, it can be either approved or offer a similar alternative to the law. And then compare it to referendums, they are usually less confrontational and more likely to be voted on and approved by the electoral and incentives in the referendum. The lecture refers to the law to the public or reject or to approve by the vote. And there's two types of referendums. They're arbitrary or optional referendums. So the legislation does not require a popular vote and can still be on the ballot in the optional or popular or the affirmative referendum. Under the optional facultative referendum, a community requires a popular vote on a law passed by the legislative wherever it's requested by a certain number of voters. And then the incentives and the referendums are the same objective by enabling citizens to take active roles in a democratic legislative system. However, they differ in approach and origin, and initiatives begin with the individual citizens, draft the proposal, also petition to add it to the ballot and on vote. Meanwhile, the referendums come from the government, and the legislature submits laws to the people for approval. And to discuss the pros and cons of both, the pros of incentive is it can be argued to simple existence, access checks on the legislators' activities. This because legislators are more likely to introduce certain reforms and measures if the incentive exists, since it's likely that if they do not, then an incentive on the issue will be reiterated. And then the cons of the initiative is one often cited disadvantage of citizens' incentives is that they result in poorly drafted laws, since except for indirect. So the wording of the measure is intensively proposed ends up as statute if the measure is passed. It is argued that the failure to use the expense provided by the government lawyers and officials who are familiar with the drafting process leads to laws that can be meaningless or ineffective. So most redrafted because individuals or lawyers who draft the measures are not experienced in the legislative drafting. So the pros for the referendative, supporters of referendative argue that increasing voter APATH and dismantled traditional forms of democracy, direct democracy, can help engage voters with policies and also Democrat. Another argument for referendative is that they can be used to solve political issues. The cons of a referendative, there were also several arguments made against referendatives. That one is that it misrepresentative Democrat by limiting the role and importance of the elected representatives. Moreover, the referendatives are often seen as a means of elected representatives to avoid having taken an unpopular position on their controversial topic. And then, so the last thing I'll be going over is explain how the incentives and referendums support the idea of direct democracy as outlined in the Arizona Constitution. So the incentives and referendatives are a critical element in promoting the concept of direct democracy as defined in the Arizona Constitution. So the legislative incentive allows citizens to propose and create new laws directly, and Arizonans can take matters into their own hands by drafting and advocating for specific policies or changes. And then for as the veto power for the referendatives permit citizens to approve or reject laws passed by the legislature. If a controversial law is enacted, the citizens can challenge it through a referendative. This ensures that major decisions have the authority of the people. So this is just an outline of just how the laws are set and the definitions of what is an incentive and a referendative. But thank you for listening. Goodbye.